Hi, and welcome to Sequential Artifacts, a series about comic book history and culture, profiling comics from my personal collection. Four. It is a square number, the smallest semi-prime and composite number. Four sides to a... There are four elementary arithmetic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. 4 weeks to a month in a lunar year. 4 points of the cross: stability, order, completeness. The four noble truths, the four temperaments, the four cardinal virtues, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. 4 elements, 4 states of matter, 4 cardinal directions, 4 phases of the moon. What's putting 4 for?
4!
It seemed too on the nose to make this the 4th video in the series. Other numbers have been called special.
1 is the loneliest number. 3 is a magic number.
4. The 4-part comic book series.
Perfection.
But where did it come from? The idea of the limited series in comic book narratives doesn't arrive until about 45 years after their invention. It's been roughly the same amount of time since then. 1978 marks the year of what is called the DC implosion. It all started with the official DC campaign called the DC Explosion. The company was expanding its roster of books and made a big splash of it. The campaign included increased page counts and cover prices too, all in a play to capture the market back from their rival, Marvel. The gambit did not pay off. DC ended up canceling new and long-running titles, as well as laying off a number of employees because people weren't buying their comics. Thus, it became known as the DC implosion. In an effort to recover from the implosion, in 1979, DC experimented with a new format, the miniseries, starting with World of Krypton, written by Paul Kupperberg and penciled by Howard Chaykin. This mini or limited series allowed DC to tell stories outside of the main, long and complicated narrative continuities of its ongoing series. They could experiment with new or lesser-known characters, see if they stick. They were successful, and, as business goes, it didn't take long for their competition to follow suit. In 1982, Marvel published its first limited series, Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions. This was shortly followed by the acclaimed and much-loved Wolverine miniseries by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller. The number of issues of that limited series? 4. So, here we are at the halfway period of the life of the comic book limited series, and I thought I'd celebrate that with a look at what I think is the perfect limited series length: 4 issues. Here are my favorite 4-part miniseries from my collection. Alright, let me begin with the rule that I've established. This is a profile of 4-part standalone series. These are not 4-part story arcs that are part of an ongoing series. The first piece of evidence I offer you is the 1983 series, Cloak and Dagger. This was written by Bill Mantlo and Rick Leonardi. Putting these two together is fantastic. And sort of this idea of exploring the light and dark in humanity and within ourselves, just the perfect characters for the themes that this book explores. I've always been interested in religious themes in comic books, so Cloak and Dagger has always been an interest of mine, and Daredevil has been my favorite superhero for as long as I've been reading comic books. But this is a great 4-part series, great artwork. Rick Leonardi is so great at creating facial expressions in this, and it's just a great short run, and the ongoing series is fantastic too. I think this character deserves more attention than he gets, and I've recently read that he is appearing in the new Doctor Doom storyline that's ongoing right now with Marvel, so I'm happy to see that. Machine Man's first appearance oddly, was in issue 8 of Jack Kirby's 2001 Space Odyssey. Kirby developed the character further in a standalone series, which went through a few rounds of creative team changes until its final issue, I believe in 1980. But in 1984, Machine Man was relaunched in a 4-part limited series by Tom DeFalco with art by Herb Trimpe and finishes by Barry Windsor Smith. Windsor Smith takes over full art for the final issue, but it's really the covers that I want to talk about first. Thematically, they do something really cool. So if you notice on the first issue here, we see Machine Man being built, but he's just sort of wires and parts. But as each part progresses, he's built further and further until he's whole. And just the detail and that classic Barry Windsor Smith style until he's finally built for the final issue. It's a great series that explores really interesting themes about creation and humanity. All right, we're going to hop over to DC. I know that's only a couple of Marvel series, but we're going to hop back to Marvel in the end. But first, I want to begin in DC with this Wild Dog limited series. There's so many things to love about this book. First, the Terry Beatty clean art, these striking colors here that are just fantastic. I love this last cover with the silhouetted face, which plays a big role in how this book goes. I really love the makeshift, realistic design of the costume. It's colorful, it's gritty, it's humorous. I also enjoy that you don't know who the real Wild Dog is until the end of the series. And there's also a cliffhanger in the very last panel. I love this Martian Manhunter series as much today as when I first read it. It's a great story by J.M. DeMatteis and brilliant artwork by Mark Badger. I've always thought Mark Badger was underrated. His art style is wild, scratchy, kinetic, and sometimes even abstract. He's perfect for this book and character, and he also drew one of my favorite Excalibur stories called The Prometheum Exchange from the early 90s, I think 1991. Here is a great pair of 4-part series by the team of Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson. These books are fantastic and dark. The weird, as its title suggests, is weird for sure, but also heavy. So much so that we see Superman crying on the penultimate page of this book. But let me focus more on the cult, Batman the Cult by these two. Holy smokes. This book is seriously one of the darkest, heaviest Batman books I have ever read. Maybe the heaviest. It's a must-read for any fan. It's dark, but it's compelling and kind of more appropriate than ever. I mean, this book is intense. At one point, Batman and Robin find themselves in a sea of bodies in the sewers of Gotham. Like I said, it's dark, but very much worth a read. I mentioned Flex Mentallo in the Fourth Wall Break video. This book is wild. Classic Grant Morrison metafiction that perfectly explores the meaning of comics in a series. And the Frank Quitely art is astonishing. These two are a perfect pair creative team, as proved in New X-Men and All-Star Superman, and I'll be looking at them again in a later video. I'm going to jump ahead to a newer DC series that I've just recently read called Plastic Man No More. I know we're on a theme here, but this is another dark book. This book had my head spinning. It's a great use of Plastic Man, his powers, and his past, and it's a total body horror book in the style of David Cronenberg or John Carpenter's The Thing. This book surprised me for sure, and I recommend it as long as you like that kind of horror. If not, you're going to want to stay away from this book. I'm going to call this section Cover Picks because when I reread these issues, well, they were kind of corny for my liking now. I liked them when I was younger, but the covers are phenomenal and those still hold up. So let's just talk about the covers for a little bit. First, with Beauty and the Beast. These issues from 1984 feature cover work by Bill Sienkiewicz. And if Bill Sienkiewicz is your cover artist, you're going to have an incredible cover. I think he's the absolute best and stands shoulder to shoulder with Dave McKeon, Brian Bolland, David Mack, Glenn Fabry, Alex Ross, that level, sort of pillars of comic book cover. Also, in this look at covers, we have Superman, The Secret Years, okay, with covers by Frank Miller. I love these Frank Miller covers because they are a perfect transition from his earlier work to what would be the quintessential style he uses in The Dark Knight Returns and beyond. And now finally, what I would consider the golden 4-part miniseries, we have two. And the first is Chris Claremont and Frank Miller's Wolverine miniseries. This run did so much to establish the Wolverine as we know him. It's an absolute classic and recommended for anybody that's begun reading comics or reread it if you're a longtime reader. Lastly is the masterpiece, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. What can I say about this that hasn't already been said? Along with Watchmen and some other books, it was this series that's responsible for what we call the dark or modern age of comic books. Now, you can debate what you think about that and what that's done to comics, but it certainly had begun a trajectory and has a unique and important place in comic books, and it's an important series to me. As I've said before, Batman is probably, at least for me, the most important character in all of comic book history, and this really is part of setting that tone and establishing the character for who he is, what he can be, what he says about the world we live in. And so The Dark Knight Returns is kind of the ultimate 4-part miniseries. So that's it for my favorite 4-part miniseries in my collection. Comment below and tell me your favorite 4-part miniseries. I'm always looking for new things to read. Also, some of you have said that you haven't been getting notifications of when I release a new video. That's easy. All you have to do is hit the